Hello second class students, back with the Old Man and the Sea and a new lecture. We started last time with the relationship between the Old Man and the other sea creatures, and in this lecture I'm going to continue talking about his journey into the middle of the sea without the accompaniment of the boy. Now, before it was really light, he had his baits out and he was drifting with the current. One bait was down 40 fathoms, the second was at 75, and the third and fourth were down in the blue water at 100 and 125 fathoms. Each bait hung head down with the shank of the hook inside the bait fish, tied and sewed very solid. Each hook was covered with a bait that was sweet smelling and good tasting to any big fish. The projecting parts of the hook were covered with fresh sardines, and Manolin had given the old man 2 fresh small tunas and albacores which hung on the 2 deepest lines. The old man now kept a watch on the dip of the various sticks over the side of the skiff and rowed gently to keep the lines straight up and down and at their proper depths. It was quite light, and any moment now the sun would rise. This is just a summary about the lecture, and I'm going to comment on the language, on the style, on the narrative techniques in these particular lines. The narrator starts with the following description. He was very fond of flying fish, as they were his principal friends on the ocean. He was sorry for the birds, especially the small delicate dark tens that were always flying and looking and almost never finding. And he thought the birds have a harder life than we do, except for the robber birds and the heavy, strong ones. In these lines, the old man shows an intimate connection with the other elements of nature, the birds and the flying fish, which are delicate ones. He considers the flying fish as friends, since he keep company of his journey. These birds and fish keep company of his journey, and they indicate the source of other big fish. They welcome him every morning, and he then makes a similarity between himself and the dark tens, like himself. They are searching for the opportunity to be lucky, and to be so, they should work harder. They always fly to catch fish. They till now never find their food, just like the old man himself. So he muses on the fragility of such birds and compares them to the other bigger and stronger birds, as if he refers to himself again, except for the robber birds and the heavy strong ones. Then after that, the narrator moves to tell us something else. Why did they make birds so delicate and fine as those sea swallows, when the ocean can be so cruel? She is kind and very beautiful, but she can be so cruel, and it comes so suddenly, and such birds that fly, dipping and hunting, with their small sad voices, are made too delicately for the sea. The old man here contemplates in a form of interior monologue about the purpose of creating such birds to be delicate. He refers to God with the pronoun they. His intimate and sympathetic feelings are rendered through the words kind and beautiful, as well as the pronoun she instead of he. The sudden change of those delicate birds can be indicated through the use of kinesthetic images, when he said, but she can be so cruel, and it comes so suddenly, and such birds that fly, dipping and hunting. These words show how such delicate creatures cannot be guessed as delicate. Then the narrator closes the monologue with an explicit revelation of the relationship between those birds and the sea. The birds plead for the sea with their voices as if they are begging for fish. Another very important quotation here in this particular episode is this. He always thought of the sea as la mar, which is what people call her in Spanish when they love her. Sometimes those who love her say bad things of her, but they are always said as though she were a woman. The narrator tells of the sailors' views of the sea. He explains that the older fishermen, including Santiago himself, consider the sea as a feminine entity, lama. But this reference is made so when the fishermen love the sea and consider it as a woman, and when they hate the sea, they start talking badly about her, especially when she, and just like the sea, doesn't give them what they want. Just like what they cannot get when they want from a woman when she refuses. Next, the narrator moves to tell us another view, now adopted by whom? By the younger fishermen about the sea. Some of the younger fishermen, those who used buoys as floats for their lines and had motorboats, bought when the shark livers had brought much money, spoke of her as Elma, which is masculine. They spoke of her as a contestant or place or even an enemy. The other view is that adopted by younger fishermen. The narrator, as if Santiago is telling here, criticizes the modern ways of fishing. We're referring to buoys and motorboats. Those young fishermen consider the sea as masculine entity, as if they look at it as enemy of something to defy. Now after that, the narrator gives us how Santiago's feelings and attitudes about the sea. But the old man always thought of her as feminine, as something that gave or withheld great favors. And if she did wild or wicked things, it was because she couldn't help them. The moon affects her as it does a woman, he thought. The end of this paragraph closes with Santiago's view of the sea. Here the narrator tells that the old man always believes the sea as a female. He justifies for her behavior when she gives or not. He believes that the sea is unable to control its unexpected behavior because it is under the control of the moon, just like women. So the sea has capricious moods in similarity to the women's moods. Now we have a different image. We move from the narrator's views about the younger fisherman and how he presents Santiago's views and the older fisherman. He moves to describe to us the way the old man is what is moving. And from now on, we are going to find how Santiago has a profound experience when dealing with the movement of the boat and the style of fishing. He was rowing steadily, and it was no effort for him since he kept well within his speed, and the surface of the ocean was flat except for the occasional swells of the current. He was letting the current do a third of the work, and as it started to be light, he saw he was already further out than he had hoped to be at this hour. This paragraph describes the journey and how Santiago behaved in an experiential manner. The series of kinesthetic images shows his sailing experience. He was rowing steadily in order to save power for later battle with the big marlin. The kinesthetic image is followed by a mixture of visual and kinesthetic images. The surface of the ocean was flat, a visual image, except for the occasional swells of the current, kinesthetic image. His experience is shown clearly when he exploits the current to push his boat forward instead of rowing, tiring himself. I worked the deep wells for a week and did nothing, he thought. Today I'll work out where the schools of Bonita and Albaca are, and maybe there will be a big one with them. Now here we have another aspect of experience shown in this paragraph, where now Santiago is speaking thoughtfully about his decision to change his previous place of fishing, expecting that the schools of Bonita and Albaca will be the source of the sight of a great fish, which is part of his experience in fishing. Now, the narrator moves from telling us how Santiago is really very experienced in making the boat moved with its own accord, now to the style of fishing. Before it was really light, he had his baits out and was drifting with the current. One bait was down 40 fathoms, the second was at 75, and the third and fourth were down in the blue water at 100 and 125 fathoms. Each bait hung head down with the shank of the hook inside the bait fish, tied and sewed, solid, and all the projecting part of the hook, the curve and the point, was covered with fresh sardines. Each sardine was hooked through both eyes, so that they made a half garland of the projecting steel. There was no part of the hook that the great fish could feel which was not sweet smelling and good tasting. Here in this paragraph, the narrator tells of another aspect of Santiago's experience, but not with the fishing, not with sailing. He tells that the old man had dropped in the sea 3 hooked baits with different levels of depth, as if he wanted us to know that the fish swim and live at different depths. So the chance of catching fish is almost possible. The narrator tells how clever the old man behaves when covering the hook entirely with the sardine. Even the fish cannot feel the projected end of the hook when it comes to eat from the bait. A very beautiful metaphoric expression is used here by the narrator to describe the shape of the hook covered with the bait. A half garland on the projecting steel, as if he is talking about a necklace with the flowers around someone's neck. Now, another image is presented next. Now the man washed the dip of the 3 sticks over the side of the skiff and rowed gently to keep the line straight up and down and at the proper depths. It was quite light, and any moment now the sun would rise. The embedded kinesthetic images presented in this paragraph show another experience that Santiago possesses. The dip of the 3 sticks over the side of the skiff and rowed gently. His gentle movement is for the purpose of keeping the line unspoiled, or for making the baits still hang around the hook. The end of the paragraph is made as if the narrator wants us to wait for the sunrise as Santiago awaits them. The sun rose thinly from the sea, and the old man could see the other boats, low on the water and well in toward the shore, spread out across the current. Next, when the sun rises slowly, the narrator presents a very nice description of its movement with some visual images, as if a nice painting is drawn behind and in front of the old man's position in the sea. The images also convey the sense of how Santiago is now very far from all other fishermen's boats. Then the sun was brighter, and the glare came on the water, and then as it rose clear, the flat sea sent it back as his eyes saw that it hurt sharply, and he rowed without looking into it. Here the narrator tells of a mixture of visual and tactile images that help create a scene of glistening and a feeling of looking closely at the sun rays reflecting in the quiet sea, which hurt Santiago's eyes. Then Santiago said something about himself. Only I have no luck anymore, but who knows, maybe today, every day is a new day. It is better to be lucky, but I would rather be exact. Then when luck comes, you are ready. In these lines, Santiago pronounces wisdom about success. He says that being lucky is not enough to be successful or to succeed, but to be exact and well prepared for the task you're supposed to accomplish. It is what is important to be successful. Then when luck comes, you will be able to do it with precision. Sometimes someone may be lucky but lacks experience or skill, and then he will be unsuccessful. So that's everything about today's lecture, and thank you very much for being so patient with me. I hope that you get something important about how the narrator is making some sort of narratorial mediation, and the style of narrative is what we are after from lecture to lecture.